We separate the final four to the final two, and we finally crown the champion of Twisted Metal 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's get into it. First matchup, we have Super Axel versus Darktooth. Talking about these two cards, you have Axel, who's this small little stick of dynamite, versus Darktooth, this giant juggernaut of health and damage output. And getting to a winner, I think in these two matchups, this is the one I can kind of decisively more give you 100% clarity on who I feel would win. So let's start at the top with the AI. Now, in this AI prediction, I ran this a few times, and it basically came back to me with the same result both times. The estimated outcome is pretty much a 7-3 in favor of Darktooth, notably because it just has the firepower, the size, and all of these other little details that go into making it a much more disastrous force in a one-on-one combat situation. I've obviously been super high on the Super Axel this entire tournament, and I think where he has strengths as far as like certain matchups go, this is just one out of the final three. He really does not have any strength against Darktooth. Darktooth has ram damage power potential over this guy. He can just drive straight over him and do a chunk of health. Even though Super Axel has the armor to deal with that in most situations, that adds up, and without the Supernova, I mean, he really doesn't have much of a good chance in close quarters. From a distance, you know, he could close the gap if Super Axel's trying to use those, you know, getaway tactics. Darktooth just has so much offense. He can just put so many pieces of weaponry on the screen, from the bombs to the Sweet Tooth's heads. It's so overwhelming that this is such a terrible matchup for a character like him, especially someone who needs to be in close to deal a significant portion of damage. Now, as mentioned, this is the final two of their side of the bracket. Darktooth obviously is a, you know, boss character. Super Axel in his case is a boss character as well, but he's not the final boss. From a tier listing perspective, I mean, they're both tip top of their game. I would say Axel only falls behind Sweet Tooth in his game. Specifically, Dead, I would call that a wash. Where do I come in on this? Well, I kind of gave my opinion mixed in with the AI outcome. For me specifically, I mean, I think Twisted Metal, the original game, is definitely a matchup heavy type of game, and Axel's strengths do not overcome the strengths of Darktooth. He needs to be in close to do damage, to utilize a special move. Armor is very, very high on both of these cards, but the ram damage is such a disproportionate piece of this puzzle, which is why I'm rolling Darktooth. I think specifically these close quarters encounters, he gets in, but he just can't overcome Darktooth driving over top of him and taking chunks of health off, melting life bar down. So with that being said, Darktooth goes on to the final. The other finals match, Twisted Metal 2 Minion, Twisted Metal 3 Primeval. This is such a disgustingly difficult choice to pick here. One of the all-time favorite characters of the series in Minion, especially his Twisted Metal 2 incarnation, and one of the most underrated bosses of the entire series in my opinion, Primeval. I think Minion's strengths, especially this version, is he's so grounded, he's armored to the teeth, and he's also just disgustingly fast. This might be one of the most best special moves as far as use, damage output, practicality as far as its practice in game, its usage. It's so dominant and strong, and it just gives you so many follow-up options to continue to do damage. the Twisted Metal 3 game does not really have much ram damage, if any at all, so this is not a strength of this car. But where Minion has his strengths, Primeval is essentially the fastest, strongest, armored up vehicle in its game. It is literally not fair to use this character, and I talked about that against his matchup with Twisted Metal 3 Minion. This car is almost indestructible by normal terms. Playing a regular vehicle against this guy, you have to do so much extra damage to even stay competitive. The special move, it doesn't miss. I don't know how else to explain that in terms to make sense to anybody. It just does not miss, ever. You're so fast, you're so strong. Getting around the screen from corner to corner, no one can outmaneuver you, and that is the peak efficiency of this vehicle. Now, I ran this matchup again through my AI model twice. Both of them specifically came out with this similar result. The cars are essentially even. I mean, there's not much of a difference. But one of the edges that this matchup basically dictates is the freeze missile creates a meta that Primeval can't match. Primeval does have access to freeze, but we have to look at it from the perspective of if you have the exact same special move doing the exact same damage, but one has a freeze missile, one does not, that will put you over the edge every time, especially in the AI's eyes. And it's predicting that AI would, or Minion would win 6 to 8 rounds, Primeval would win 2 to 4. Now, this isn't essentially saying that it's a 5-5 matchup. It's something like 6 to 4, 5.5 to 4.5. It's very, very close. Now, where do I come in? Well, Primeval has already beaten an incarnation of Twisted Metal 3 Minion, and I think there's a big difference between 2 and 3 as far as that ram damage output, where I think Minion's special move from a tracking perspective is not as good in 2. That is not saying that it still doesn't deal a ton of damage and packs a huge punch. I think Primeval has the mobility to maybe avoid it, put itself into some better situations where it doesn't connect fully. Primeval will continuously get that full damage from its special move. Both have the armor to absorb these attacks. I mean, this is just apples to oranges as far as like preference wise. We have to look at it too, just from how these two cars would collide, all these other variables involved. From a franchise perspective, menacing people who are fans of the series, you have to give credit where it's due. Twisted Metal 2 Minion might be one of the all-time best made, most practical use vehicles in the entire series, especially in the second incarnation where it's also one of the bigger cars, it's one of the fastest vehicles. This car versus any in the series, it holds its own and probably wins. And I hate to do this because I think Primeval is a disgustingly overpowered monster of a boss, especially when you're able to play as this car, which I recommend you download mods or something to do it. It's so much fun. But without the ram damage, with that lack of like a freeze missile with its special move, you're guaranteed damage, but again, it doesn't lock you in place for follow-up attack, which basically just takes Minion to the next level. This is creating what's about to be the Twisted Metal 2 finals for the Twisted Metal March Madness bracket. Unbelievable. Started this tournament in March, and because of life, we're just now getting to a champion. And what better to slug it out than the Darktooth boss from Twisted Metal 2, and maybe the best fan favorite vehicle of all time, Twisted Metal 2 Minion. These two are colliding from the best Twisted Metal game, and let's get the best damn champion crowned. And for the championship round here, I'm going to be using the AI myself, and if I need a tiebreaker, I'm going to refer to a special friend of mine that's going to help me out here. So let's get into this matchup and see exactly what we're dealing with here, and let's crown a fucking champion. So let's get down to it. We've played this matchup before. You've went through the game, you've played as Minion, and you've gotten to the end. You could kill Darktooth very quickly, and the same could be said, Darktooth can kill Minion very quickly. This is a very firepower based matchup. Size really isn't relevant here. One card is huge, the other one is gigantic. Freeze is going to play into this, and Minion has the special to basically be that dude, to put a dagger in that man's heart. Now, why would Darktooth win? Well, he's a just giant broken boss character. He's bigger than Minion. He may be faster, I don't know, but the dude's damage output from ram damage alone is a huge denominator in this math equation. He can just run through you. He runs through all of his opponents. The special move is not the killer here. It's specifically the ram damage. So the big point of emphasis here is, can Minion negate that? Well, like I mentioned before, he is the perfect special to do so. This man can freeze Darktooth, get away, and run for his life. So let's start with the AI. What does it think? Well, I ran this again a few times. It searched the entire web to pull its results in. And fortunately for Darktooth, it picked it in both scenarios. It said 6 to 8 times Darktooth head up would beat Minion. Now, reading through the AI analysis of that matchup, there's a lot of points that I would like to agree on. One, Darktooth is essentially just built to be a broken character. It's not balanced for gameplay. But what I would like to argue in a sense of practicality and use, Darktooth is a giant lumbering vehicle. Its maneuverability is questionable. When I watch people play this through a mod, at best it's ice skating around the screen. Minion is basically built to be the most functional, powerful, core character, maybe of the entire series. In my personal opinion, if you had both of the AI Minion and Darktooth play against one another, especially in the Twisted Metal 2 engine, I just feel like, again, I think this is a very quick match. One is going to beat the other, but from my personal feelings, I have a tougher time fighting just Minion's AI. I'm not talking about the boss cheese at the end of the game, the multiple forms that Darktooth takes, the spam garbage that he can perform. It's just annoyances to where Minion can catch you and outright kill you within a few hits. The AI has picked Darktooth. I am casting my vote for Minion, which leaves us tied 1-1. So I'm going to have to bring in my special guest voter, a man who has as much Twisted Metal 2 playtime as any person on the face of the planet, and he will have the deciding vote. And I quote what he says for the winner when I asked him, who would win 1v1, Darktooth or Minion? And his answer, Minion, square up. Congratulations, Twisted Metal 2 Minion is your champion of Twisted Metal March fucking Madness. Minion took out Microblast, Orbital, Twisted Metal 1 Thumper before upsetting Twisted Metal 4 Sweet Tooth on his way to the Final Four, where he took down not only the boss Primeval Twisted Metal 3, but the boss of his own game, Twisted Metal 2. If you followed this journey for the past few months, I just want to thank you for tuning in. This was just a fun side project I've been trying to squeeze out as a Twisted Metal fan of the original games. Love the series, and I can't wait for it to come back at some point if Sony would actually get their heads out of their asses. Anyways, this has been your boy User Pick, and I thank you for watching Twisted Metal March Madness.